Welcome to the Throwdown, our mostly weekly segment where the Technodrome decides what is best, what is worst, who is right, and who is wrong. Now, you might notice that we have a different face here, that Scales is missing. I'd like to introduce to you the Rev, Brian, who's a good friend of mine, good friend of ours. We're happy to have him on the show. Scales had a scheduling conflict this week, and Brian was more than happy to jump in, and we're more than happy to have him. Say hello, Brian.
We'll do the Queen wave. Yes. Hello.
So for once, the Brooklynites outweigh the Connecticutians on this show.
Yeah.
Brian.
Well, again, Brooklyn is in Long Island, so right? I think.
Yeah,
Long Island.
That one.
No. Okay.
All right. So our topic for this week is The Breakfast Club versus American Pie, the two kings of teen comedies, the best from the 80s, the best from the 90s. Now, some of you out there might not agree with me. You might say, hey, what about 16 Candles from the 80s? What about Can't Hardly Wait from the 90s? And if you think that, forward your opinion to I couldn't care less at getyourownpodcast.com, and nobody will read it ever. But for now, I'm going to pretend to put time on the clock, and Duff is actually going to ring a gong. He's got one in the background. Grab the mallet.
It's over here. Hold on.
Yes.
Gotcha.
All right. American Pie versus Breakfast Club, and we're going to throw it to our guest, the Rev. What is your choice between the two movies?
Well, if you can't tell by my background, my choice would be American Pie. Two totally different movies. Both are teen comedies, but I kind of relate better to the American Pie. Trilogy, 4, 5. How many have they had? I don't know. But
we
at least the first
up in that
second.
Generation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was like the generational movie where it was just kind of, very raunchy for the times, where, Breakfast Club was great too, but it just didn't really flow with how I grew up. It was obviously before my time. The year that I grew up is when Breakfast Club came out in 1985. But at least the first two American Pies were totally excellent, especially American Pie 1. Loved it. I know, Steve, you loved it. I remember in college, you used to tell me you watch it every night.
Oh, yeah.
But I loved all the characters in it. Obviously, Steve Stifler and, Jeem. I love him too. But
with that fantastic acting and accent.
Oh, absolutely. But the worst character in the whole film is Kevin. I can't stand that guy. He's the worst character probably in all of movies. Like,
he's a wiener. He's just a little wiener.
After Rookie of the Year, that's it. He's terrible. But no, American Pie, that's my movie. It's just because it's like the South Park. It's like the WWE of the 90s. It's like all that pent-up anger. It's like the Limp Bizkit. It's all that pent-up rage, parties all over the place, having sex for the first time, lying about it. But yeah, it was a good movie, and I like American Pie much better than Breakfast Club.
All right. I can respect that. I'll go now.
All right.
The first two American Pie movies, yes, were hysterical. They're great. American Wedding was awful. I only saw it one time, and I didn't even enjoy it then. It was around that, like, whenever it came out, it's like, this is terrible. Like, Stifler went from being, like a jackass to just being really stupid, and it wasn't funny. The only other one, I didn't see any of those made for TV or whatever, straight to video ones with Eugene Levy, but I saw American Reunion with you.
So many of them, though.
That was good. That was a good way to cap it off. So I do love American Pie, and yes, it is true. I used to have it on every night for a while because I couldn't go to sleep without having a movie on. Mr. Duff knows all too well because Scales and I live together in the Technodrome. Oh, we have a fan calling in.
Take your pills.
Hi. How are you?
Hello. No, they agree with you.
Oh, wow. But sadly, I don't agree with you, sir. I do love American Pie, but I like The Breakfast Club better.
Get the
And it's not
horns.
yeah. You mess with the bull, young man, you get the horns. I think that they both depict high school well and just what it's like to be that age. From what I can gather, because the Rev and I went to all boys Catholic high school, so it wasn't quite like either movie, but just the feeling of going through those teen years and growing up and how awkward it can be. I think The Breakfast Club kind of hits all those archetypes, there's the cool girl, and then there's, like the kind of rebel kid, there's the jock kid, there's the nerdy kid, and then there's the total outcast. And even if you don't fit solely into one of those categories, you can identify with parts of each of them. I just like it feels like they both feel like honest movies, but I feel like The Breakfast Club, just the way that they all kind of get together and they recognize that, yeah, they're friends that day, but are they really going to be when they go back to school, the next week?
Don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horns.
So yeah, the Breakfast Club for me. Again, American Pie is hysterical. I just think they both kind of overreach a little bit, but I think that The Breakfast Club lands on its feet a little more than American Pie. American Pie is that outrageous, like raunchy, gross out humor. It's more touching moments though, especially looking back now. It's like these guys they're like bonding over a bet to get laid by prom, like real special. It wasn't really much deeper than that. But Duff, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have a question to ask you first.
Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Best line.
I mean, this is actually a tough one for me. I didn't think it would be as difficult. And I think I'm just basing it off of, what I really was more like, into at the time. And, Breakfast Club, it's a great movie. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of characters in there that you feel like you can relate to. And it's a little bit more like, has some serious undertones with some certain things there. And there's a lot of, funny moments to it as well. The music is also great in it. There's just a lot of different moments in there, but it's a little dated. Again, like, Brian was saying there, and it's, it came out in 85, year I was born, and, it's the 80s, but I don't really relate to it as much. American Pie came out in, was it 99, just at the edge there of, high school and everything. And, I don't know. I feel like, there's a lot more funnier moments in there, things that are more of the times that I feel like it can relate to. So I think I'm going to go that direction. I think I gotta pick
Like warm apple pie.
I gotta pick the apple pie here. So, I'm going American Pie for my choice. In that movie as well, there's also some music in there that I immediately hear, and I think of like high school. I think of like, those times of, going to parties and having fun with your friends and stuff. And it just kind of has that nostalgic feel to it as well. Even though it's not like a movie that I'm going to sit here and say it deserves any kind of awards or anything like that. It's just, I don't know, it's just an enjoyable movie. And, I have memories of falling asleep to it because it was on in the background. It was either that or the movie Clue, which we could also talk about down the road. Good old Tim Curry classic there. But so it has its moments. And I think, if I'm picking one of the movies and basing it off of like, if there's one movie that I'm really going to kind of lock onto, something that I feel like more nostalgic towards, and I think I got to, put my money towards American Pie. So,
yeah. And again,
smart man.
Because that's more the time that we grew up. Like Brian said, Breakfast Club came out the year we were born. We were just hitting our stride, going into high school when American Pie came out, so we could relate to that more firsthand. Eugene Levy is hysterical too in America.
His eyebrows.
He really is. It's
one thing I never got in American Pie is when Nadia's going over gyms and Stifler's like, "You're gonna have an Eastern European girl naked in your house," and like, "Oh yeah, of course, I'm gonna hide a camera and broadcast it to." How does that thought cross anybody's mind?
It was so good, man.
Yeah.
Gene.
Yeah. Oh, Gene.
What was that trailer that you sent me years and years ago? What was it? The serious trailer for American Pie?
Yeah, where they recut it as a horror
those
movie.
recuts are pretty good.
Those are so good.
What did they recut that one to? Like, was one of them a murderer or something like that? Or
yes,
yeah,
it was a murder.
The funniest part was I think it's still on YouTube. You can find it. It was the American Pie 2 one.
Okay.
And it's the scene when Jim and Nadia are in that like lighthouse when they leave the party, and she's like, "You have not changed," and he's like, "Actually, that's quite difficult." She's like, "What do you mean?" And it's like, "Rrr," like he's changing into a werewolf or something.
That's pretty great.
That's why the movie's better. Clearly,
Yeah, if for no other reason. So good.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right. Well, that concludes our throwdown for this week. I'd like to thank the Rev for filling in for Scales. We look forward to having you back again. We did have a full episode plan that we were going to tape today, but didn't work out. So we're going to have to push that back a few months, and the Rev will certainly be back with us for that episode. So
I guess we can have him back. I'd allow it.
I got to check my schedule.
Yeah, you check. Yeah, you let me know. Yeah, let me know what you're doing in July. But that's it for today. We'd like to thank you for tuning in, and we want to hear from you. What movie do you prefer, The Breakfast Club or American Pie, or one that we didn't mention? And then once again, you could go tell other people. Who
I can't hardly wait.
Jennifer Love Hewitt. I mean, she wins. You can't say much there. But yeah, so check us out on social media, on Instagram and TikTok at Throwbacks Technodrome Pod.
Correct.
I think I got it. Otherwise, it'll be in the credit roll after we're finished here.
Awesome.
And subscribe, drop us a comment, let us know how we're doing and what you think. And we will see you all soon.
Bye.